Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for taking some time to check the video out. Always much appreciated. Today we're going to be talking about some of the most common things that actually detract bass from biting the lure. These are some hardware issues, some like terminal tackle type stuff, and I think a lot of people don't understand how big of an impact this has as far as getting the bass to actually commit to a lure. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to identify some of the key things that detract fish from hitting the lure so you can make those corrections and increase your odds of getting more bites. So real quick guys, before we get started, I just wanted to thank everybody that's been participating in our view product shopping tab. You know, when at the bottom of the screen when the video comes on, you'll see a thing that says view products, and it's a bunch of products in there that I think you guys might be interested in, and thank you for checking those out and purchasing those. Much appreciated. It's a very good way to help support the channel here, so I definitely thank you for that. Okay guys, let's talk about some stuff here specifically. What detracts bass from biting lures? And there's 5 or 6 things that I can remember. So the first thing I want to talk about is snaps and O-rings. Now, first of all, I see a lot of people making the mistake of using snaps on a lure. You know, they put a snap on the eye tie of the lure. They do it for a variety of reasons. A lot of it is, you know, they think it's quicker to tie lure, it gives it better action and that type of stuff. A snap it's one of the most terrible pieces of terminal tackle available to anglers, simply because snaps will fail. I don't care how good of a quality of snap that you have, how strong you think it is. If you get hung up with heavy line on a snap, you will straighten that snap out. I've had snaps straighten out on fish, straighten them out pulling on them. A lot of times you'll get them hung up or something and the snap will actually come loose and you don't know it. And so you've got just the snap hanging there that's not attached. So the first thing is stop using snaps, because in addition to that, snaps are longer, you know, as far as they have more width to them and length, which is a visual strike distractor to the fish. Now, along with that same thing is O-rings or split rings you have. I recommend tying all your baits to the eye with a split ring. Don't tie them directly to the eye. Don't use a snap. Use a split ring, because a split ring is extremely strong. You're never going to break it. The one that I use is the little Megabass bronze one, and that's another thing about it is when you're using split rings, guys, do not use too big of split rings, because a large split ring that has a large diameter on it is a visual strike deterrent, and also it will impede the action of your lures. What you want to use is the smallest split rings that you can get by with, and like I said, that's why I do use those Megabass split rings. They're bronze, they're really super strong, and the wire on them small. I've never bent one out ever on that. So by going to a small split ring to tie your lures on there or to put your hooks on there, it's going to add up to a lot more fish, and because if you don't do it right, they are distract deterrents. Okay, the next one is a biggie, and it's hooks. Now, guys, hooks are necessary on a lure, obviously, but hooks are one of the biggest detractors of a bait I have ever seen. Bass, you can't believe how many bass that you do not catch simply because you have hooks on your lures. Now, I know this is a fact because in practice, a lot of times I'll practice with no hooks at all, and it is significantly noticeable about how many more bites you will get with a lure with no hook on it. For example, one of the things I do on any type of my Texas rigging, if I'm practicing for a tournament, is I simply cut the hook off where it's just like a little nub of a shank sticking out about that far, and then I'll peg the eye with like a toothpick to hold it into place, but there's no hook on the bait at all, and you always get more bites like that simply because the visual of the hook is not there. It's the same with treble hooks. The larger the treble hook, the more of a visual strike deterrent that is. So the way that you can get around that is you have to downsize, especially on the length of a hook. A lot of times some guys will use like a super long worm hook that's even worse than a shorter one. So one of the things that I found is that if you go smaller instead of bigger on your hooks, you're going to get more strikes. That's going to add up to more fish in the boat. And I'm convinced that smaller hooks a lot of times actually hook the fish better than a larger hook, simply because they're smaller diameter. But the advice that I'll give you guys on that is try to stay with the smallest hooks you can go by. I don't care if you're Texas rigging, if you're throwing treble hooks, you know, if you're fishing a fluke or anything like that. Whatever you probably have been using as far as a hook size, try going down a size. You know, if you're used to using a 4/0 flipping hook in a creature bait, try using a 3/0 flipping hook. You know, if you're used to using number 4 trebles on your crankbaits or something, go to number 5 treble. I mean, something that's a little bit smaller. I can promise you guys it will add up to more bites for y'all. And finally, another big strike deterrent, I think, is the use of O-rings on a wacky rig. We've talked about this before. I always hook my hook right in the middle of the worm. I never use, you know, the O-ring that a lot of people put in the middle of the worm to hook it in there. I think that's a visual strike deterrent to the fish. People don't give bass enough credit for how close they study a lure. Yeah, sometimes they'll hit anything, but a lot of times, more than not, they study a lure closer. So the main thing, guys, is try to keep anything visual on the lure that takes away from the actual look of the lure. Try to keep it as diminutive, as small, and as make it blend in as much as you can to the bait if all possible, and it will definitely add up to a lot more fish for you guys. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later.